What is going on, everybody? It is Ian here with Miller Garage, and today we're doing this is a very specific video relating to one of the products that we are now offering, which is CNC cut interior aluminum skins. And the purpose of this video is to instruct on exactly how to measure the interior of your trailer, all of the different windows, openings, etc., so that we can properly cut those skins to fit into your trailer. This is relatively straightforward. There are quite a few measurements. I think it's something like about 120-ish measurements that you have to take to properly, hit everything so that we can get the skins just right. But we do have our system set up really well. We have well, for one, this instructional video to help you do it, but also whenever you receive your documents, you'll not only have the the whole list of measurements with descriptors of what they are, but we include a reference drawing that shows what the skins look like, essentially like laid out, and where you're supposed to be measuring those. Now, what we're going to get into today is that process and really get detailed about like where specifically to measure from, because obviously, there's different surfaces on the window frames, on the ribs, all of those things. One thing that we will say is that right now, this process is set up for trailers that are 1969 and newer. We haven't done anything past 94 into the wide bodies, so that is also, I'd probably say, like, as of right now, that's a stopping point for us. If you have a newer trailer, we reach out to us and maybe we can get some reference measurements and see how close it is to our system and if we can accommodate that. We will eventually create the measuring process and the whole system to be able to do pre-1969 trailers. But for right now, we're kind of hitting that spot where like the majority of what people are working on is in that year range. So that is what this is for. So we have just started offering completely brand new interior aluminum skins that are precision cut on our CNC machine. We have a 5x10 CNC table, so we're able to make panels that are up to 10 feet long, so you have a minimal amount of seams within your trailer. And we've done plenty of trailers prior to having this machine, and we have found that even though like we really had our process dialed in, this still saves us about 2 days worth of labor with like around 2 people. So that has been really beneficial for us. And if this is your first time doing it, obviously a lot of people, they get a trailer and that's like the only one they're going to do. Makes sense. It's a very difficult process, and even more so, the aluminum can be pricey. And so if you make a mistake, that's, obviously that's going to cost you. So we are trying to create something to where you can get new skins that'll fit your trailer with a relatively easy process at a, comparative to what we charge to install them, a relatively affordable price. So we are going to dive in, and I want to just preface this video by saying accuracy and measurement is very important, obviously, because what you give us is what we're going to cut it to. So it's really good. We highly recommend having a second person helping you with just holding the measuring tape, but you also want, have one person hold, one person measure and write down, and then switch and do everything again with, the other person writing and measuring. So then you can just verify 100% that you are getting the measurements correct, because again, we've tried to create the easiest system to use, but at the end of the day, we do rely on your measurements and what you come up with. And once it's cut, that's it. So we want to be very accurate with this. So we are going to dive in and start measuring. Okay, so we're just going to start working our way down the list, and we're going to hit kind of like the important things and maybe not do 100% of every single measurement on the video, because there is obviously like redundancy because the windows are all done the same way and all of that. So we're going to start. We need to get subfloor measurements. we are going to be measuring basically like the total floor. So you want to get to like the outside of the C channel on the front all the way to the outside of the C channel in the back. So Kevin, if you can hold this in place. And see, I have an assistant who's not very good at his job. Yeah. And so we got there. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we are at 324 and a half. To clarify, because there's X, Y, and Z on these. So we just did the Y subfloor. So Y is going lengthwise, parallel to the trailer. X is width. So that's going perpendicular to the length of the trailer. And then Z is our vertical axis, and that's up and down. And this is the same thing. We're going to the outside of the floor C channel. So we're getting the full floor width. 92 and a quarter, which also sounds great. Okay, so there are a few tools that you are going to need to do the measuring. Obviously, a measuring tape. We recommend a 30-foot if you're doing a 31-foot trailer. I think a 25 will be good for just about everything else, but for 30 and above, you will need measuring tape. And the other thing that you're going to need is a carpenter's square and like a straight edge. And we use a 48-inch. And we use this because sometimes we need to basically like measure off a point on the wall. Like we measure from the front to this first rib, and you obviously can't measure directly along the wall. And so we 90 it off the wall so that we can make sure that we get that reference. So that is what you'll be needing those for. Okay, so then on measurement C, this is going to be Y to first rib 4. So we're going to measure to this front part of the rib. And this is whenever we use the square and our straight edge. And Kevin will get this set up here. Things in the way. But okay. Then you can see we got it squared up against the C channel, and then it lined up on the edge of that rib. So then we're going to measure that distance, which is 35 and a half. Okay, so this next one is Y first rib 4 to last rib aft. So if you don't know, and what we're referring to, 4 is the front of the trailer, aft is the rear of the trailer. So the first rib 4, that's going to be the front of the rib. And the ribs are oriented differently. So this one right here, you can see there's the leg here that is on the wall, and then the centerpiece, and then this leg that comes off this way. So sometimes it'll be the other way, and so then you'll do the leg that comes off this way. So for this particular one, it's relatively straightforward with these because they aim the directions forward and rear. So we're going to attach that to the front of the rib, and it comes all the way, maybe down to the rear. And while you're measuring, you do want to be sure that they're holding it tight and that you're pulling the tension out of it, because tape measures tend to do that, and we can get up to like a 1/4 inch difference in pulling the slack out of it. So that is 235 and a quarter. On this part, we actually have put some dimensions in here that are kind of like standards. So we said like the floor length is 324 and a half, and that was pretty close. The width, somewhere, let's see. Yeah, 92 and a half. We were 92 and a quarter, so very close there. So you can kind of reference our measurements that we've gotten, and if you're, within 1/8 to a 1/4 inch, then you're probably pretty close. There's some of them that, like the overall length, that will be different from what your trailer might be, because obviously this is a 31. You might be doing a 23 foot trailer. A really tiny,
really short,
really short Airstream. Yeah, it's a mice stream. So that can be helpful as well. Right now, we're gonna skip this middle section here. We're gonna talk about that here in a little bit, because this has to do with where our seams overlap. And we're going to talk about this at the end, because this is one of those things that will perhaps be dictated by your design and your layout. Because a lot of times whenever we're building a trailer and we're designing the skins, we want to have the seams land in a wall so that you can't see it. It's not always possible, but a lot of times we're able to do that. So we will come back to that. So we're just going to skip over that for just a second and move on to the door. Okay, and so for the door itself and the skins on the door, we actually, if you haven't already gotten rid of the interior skins from your door, a lot of times we do recommend keeping those so that you can trace it. They're very close, but sometimes there's slight differences, and the main reason is because the skin actually slots into the frame of the door, and so they're all just perhaps just slightly different. I mean, what we do whenever we cut the skins is we overcut them ever so slightly so that you can kind of trim it down to where it'll fit in there. We want to make sure these fit right, so we'd rather leave just a little bit, so then you can trim that down. But you're basically going to measure the door width, so that is 26 3/4. We're going to write that down, and then the next thing we're going to do is our Z-axis is on the door. And I actually forgot a tool that you're going to need here, and that is like a cloth tape or like a tailor's measuring tape, and so this is the only way to really accurately measure the curve. So we are going to start up here at the top. A little higher, because we want to be over the lip there, because the aluminum slots into the lip. So we're going to go up to the very top like that, and actually keep it up against it and work our way down. Don't want any discrepancies. And on this one, we're going to run out, so we're going to kind of pick a spot that we can start over on. What number was I on? 58? That sounds right. And then, yeah, so 58 plus 9 3/8. And then we are going to measure the door itself. And this part's a little trickier, because you kind of have to, do you have that straight edge? And put it on this lip, line it up with the door frame here, and measure down. Okay. So that tells me that I measured the door skin wrong, because it's 67 3/8, so that's not possible. So I think whenever I stopped on that one spot, I didn't remember the number correctly. So you get the idea. The next thing we're going to do is measure the Y to the door, which is the front to that same spot. So again, we're going to need our straight edge here. And we want to do it to that same lip right there. So our Y front to that opening is 75 7/8. So whenever it says like Y to window or something like that, it's going to be, now we're referencing everything off of this front rib. And so that is what, 40 5/8. 40 5/8. Okay, now we are going to start diving into our windows. So our first ones are going to be our stack windows. If you're not familiar, we're going to go over windows real quick, just so that we all are on the same page here. But we have our stack windows, our side windows. They can also be referred to as awning windows. I don't like using that term because they oftentimes call like the front windows that too. So we used to say side windows, and then these are the Vista windows. So we are going to get those measurements, and with the stack and Vista windows, we are measuring to the essentially the lip, whatever type of window you have, you want it to go to where the glass starts, because that's going to be where the trim ring goes in there. With the Vista windows, if you had your original skins, you may have noticed like there was the big opening with like the slider thing in there. And odds are that's trash. But if you still want to use that, then you can even fit that piece back in, or there's a few different options for trim rings. So where there are those areas of variance, we leave more material there for you to trim it out to fit what you're going to be putting in there. So that's kind of our caveat. We do offer now a plastic version of this trim ring up here. It is linked below. It only fits the 30-inch wide windows. If you have the shorter 18 or the longer 40-inch, it won't work for that. So it's only for this style. And we do, like I said, have those available. So we're going to start measuring. And with all of these, we're getting our Z, which is the ground, up to this point. So the air going to come in here. And again, this is where we're kind of like, looking to get as close as we can. So that looks like 29 3/4 to me. And it's, the stack passenger. So, and that's the other thing too, is be sure that whenever you're measuring, you have your driver's side, which is going to be on this side. So if you're facing the front of the trailer to the left, and then the passenger is on the right. In America, other countries may vary. So that is important. So then we're going to do the passenger window. If you have additional windows from what is on our list, I don't think that is possible, because I think we have a whole bunch. But and whenever you order, you'll specify the length of your trailer, so we'll kind of send you the documents that are close to yours and have the right amount of spaces for it in theory. But just if you run into something like that, contact us. But also you can just start writing in those same measurements there.
We can make something to work for you. If you put extra windows in or something, we have a customer right now that added 2 stack windows here for like a coffee nook. We can make it work.
Yeah. One other thing I will say is that all of our Z-axis, so that is coming up. We don't have it for every single window, and the reason is because they are relatively consistent throughout the trailer. There is maybe an 1/8 inch variance, but again, that falls within our tolerance. So we're going to get like the passenger side, the driver's side, and then we'll get our window spacing based off the Y-axis. But the Z-axis is only going to be for a few windows. Okay, so we're going to do the Z to window. And so this is an area where we're definitely going to make sure there's clarity. So if you look on the window frame, and if you have the original skins, you remember that the skins were riveted to this, and then there was a trim piece that went over the top of that. So when we're measuring to this, we are going to measure to about 1/4 inch off the top edge, because that's generally where the skin lands. So we're going to bring it down here. We're going to bring it up. Okay. And usually they hit right there, 41. So we're going to put our measurement at 40 3/4, because that's about 1/4 inch off that inside edge. Okay, and then we're going to do our Vista window. And again, this is obviously a trickier measurement to get because we have the curvature going on. But again, these ones, we just do that opening, so it's not like massively critical, because we're coming in at 69 1/8. So we mark that, and then we get the skins. Like I said, it's going to have just 2 cutouts there, so then you can trim it to fit whatever trim you're putting on your windows. So you just duplicate that process on the driver's side, and any additional things that you may have. And then we start to get into our y-axis. Okay, so kind of a similar thing. There is a specific spot that we have to measure to on the y-axis to the windows. So again, our y measurement starts at the front of this rib, and then we are going to be measuring to this edge right here on the opening of the actuator, because that is where we set our dimension to, and it does notch out around that a little bit. And so that particular one is 3¼ inch. What we will also need from you is to know what type of window actuators you have. So like this one here, the slot for the actuator is on the bottom portion of the window, because this is the type that has these little slide guides that it goes into. There's the type that have the flat arms that have the pins that lock and slide, and those, the opening is up towards the top. So we need to know that because we cut the skins according to that as well. So that is, I believe there's a spot on there to specify that. Okay, so we got that, and then we basically, again, we repeat the process. So we have it on the front of the rib, and we come to our next window, which has tape on it. Okay, and so that one is at 99½. All right, and so we just progressively continue measuring and get all of them. And then again, we repeat the process on the other side. So that is basically how you get all of those. And the process is the same for our stack windows and our Vista windows. So like this stack window, again, we're going to where the trim and the glass meet there. So that is 3½. And then, this should in theory be pretty close to the same. I would say, yeah, that's about technically 3 3/8. If you've worked on an Airstream for any amount of time, you've realized that from the factory in the 60s and 70s, they must have been on a lot of psychedelics, because they're very off. Like we've had discrepancies in windows and some things that are up to like an inch. In fact, we just finished up a floor job where the wheel well openings, I kid you not, were 1.5 inch different placement from one side to the other. It's really impressive. So then we basically just continue all of those measurements. We get all of that, and that places all of our windows. You're probably thinking maybe, what about the front and rear window? That's a good question. Remember what we do for that. Those are determined by the front pieces of aluminum. So we measure for the front plate up here. So for this sheet that goes right here, that dimension will dictate the window placement, because we don't need to worry about the sides. The top is established by the end cap pieces. So so this is really the only important measurement is this. And then the back, it's kind of a similar thing in that lower piece references where the bottom is, and then we have specific pieces that cut out to fit around the window. So those are already set, and with those you basically place them on the window, and then you lay them out, and it doesn't matter how much you got hanging off on the end, because then you're going to overlap with the next sheets. So those things kind of are preset. So we don't need to worry about measuring the front or the rear window independently. We do need to measure just the sections that sit below them. Okay, so now we're going to measure our wheel wells, and so this is going to be Y to wheel well. We don't have a passenger or driver side. Verify that they're the same. We'll show you the way that we are doing windows on like 99% of our builds is we're building them, we do in Cusa floors, and we're building the wheel wells out of Cusa. And so we are measuring and cutting according to it being just a rectangular box. And so when we do the skins, we're gonna basically do it the same way. Because that's how all of our algorithms are set up in there. So you may have the original ones that have the curve in it, and so whenever you measure, you're going to measure to where where the, depending on what type you have, some of them have like that C channel that it sits in. And so if it has the C channel that's similar to this that the wheel well sits in, you're going to measure to that edge of the C channel. If it doesn't, you're just going to measure it up to, I would leave about an 1/8 inch clearance to the plastic, and then it will just be squared off. And most people have it covered by cabinets and all that stuff, so if the insulation's showing, it's not the end of the world. If you want to get some extra aluminum and just kind of cut it to that curve and place it over it, then go for it. But this is how we do it. This is how we offer it. So if you want to square it up on that, we got a bunch of plumbing in the way. Yeah, I just really like to make things easy. With my trailer.
So in this case, obviously the plumbing is in the way of me getting a nice measurement, so we're just going to have to figure out what the offset is on our framing square, which is about
2 inches.
This one's 1.5 inches from the edge, so we'll just measure to the edge and add 1.5 inches.
Okay, yeah, we can do that.
And that puts us at 155 3/8 before
Hold on.
inch.
I put it on the top. See, this is why we're doing this video, is because you can see us make the mistakes, and then you can do it right. So we're gonna go up over the top. Okay, I'm on it.
There we go. Yeah. That makes things.
This is the correct way to do it.
121 3/8. And since we want to leave 1/8 of an inch of gap, I'm just going to kick it down to 121 1/4. It's nothing more annoying when you're trying to fit skins in and stuff is just a little bit too big.
Yeah.
So
while we're over here, I want to address one thing. So, on this trailer, we have our water heater inlet, like vent thing, and then our water fill and all this stuff. So you may already have some of this stuff in your trailer. And the best thing to do, because it's kind of hard, especially like some of these oddly shaped things, it's hard to get measurements and kind of place where the cut should be on the machine. These are some of the things that are going to have to be manually cut, especially if you like put the skins in and then install these things after the fact. So a lot of times it's using a hole saw, cutting it to that size. Again, a lot of these things you can leave some tolerance. It doesn't have to be perfectly fitted to it. It's better if it's not, because then everything fits a little bit better. And so those things are some of the other areas where you're going to have to do a little bit of your own trimming and cutting. The other thing, and just while we're on this topic, is going to be things like electrical outlets, light switches, where you have wires coming through. We can't, a lot of times people don't know exactly how their electrical is going to be laid out down to like the 1/8 inch. So those are things where you're going to have to cut your spots for your electrical boxes and stuff coming through. So get yourself some hand shears, some hole saws, and a nibbler. All of that together is going to be under $500 easy. And if you're working on an Airstream, there's a good chance you probably already have a lot of that stuff. So those are some things that regardless, we recommend that you have with this process. So then we're going to finish out the wheel well by getting the Y wheel well and the Z wheel well. Okay, so I want to just the differentiation here. We have Y2 wheel well, so that's always going to be the front rib to the object. And then the Y wheel well and the Z wheel well is the dimensions of the wheel well itself. So we got the distance to it, and then we need the length of it. So that's our Y of the wheel well. And on this one, it is 68 inches. So we need to get that. And then we're going to get our Z of the wheel well, which is 12 inches. So that'll establish our cutout size. We don't do the X because we're not going that way. So that'll be for you to deal with whenever you're building furniture. So, so we're already all the way over here. So we're making good progress. Like I said, if you have a good understanding of this, it is pretty straightforward. and it's relatively easy. And if you have, somebody that's enjoyable to be around to work with, then it can be a fun experience. Have a few beers, take some measurements. Don't have too many beers while you're measuring though, because that would definitely throw things
That
up.
would cost you, bro.
Yes. So now we're gonna do the X and the Z of the front skin. So since we're up here, we have the X-axis, and that is gonna be, it's basically the window, because we've centered the front skin plate under the window. So this one here, we're just gonna put it at 44. This is kind of one of those areas where if you have a little bit extra on something like this, it's not the end of the world. It can sometimes be beneficial. So that one's gonna be 44. So one thing I'm gonna talk about, a lot of times like you'd be looking at it and perhaps it kind of lands in the middle of a 16th tick mark, so that you're getting into 30 seconds and stuff like that. With all of this, all of our cuts and how it installs, I would assume, well, not I would assume, we have found there's about an 1/8 inch tolerance on these measurements. So as long as you're within an 1/8 inch plus or minus, a 16th one way or the other, then you're good. So you don't need to break it down all the way to like 30 seconds and 64ths and all of that stuff. It's not necessary. We don't go to that level. So usually like within an 1/8 to a 16th is what we're aiming for here. So there is a lot of kind of flexibility. Obviously on like the window frames and stuff, we have a good amount of meat there, so we want to, get as close as possible, but there is that little bit of tolerance there.
Another benefit to doing the ceiling that way is you don't have to hold up this really long, in these really long trailers. That can be a lot. You need a bunch of different friends to try and hold stuff up. So it makes it a little bit easier in that regard. The other thing is that a lot of your fans and air conditioning units, the flanges are designed to sit flat against a flat surface. If you do skins the way that they come from the factory, you have this curve that you have everywhere else in the trailer, and that can cause gapping in the middle sections of your fan shrouds or your AC shrouds. By doing the ceiling this way, you end up with a flat surface, and everything tends to draw up much nicer and look nicer as well.
Exactly. The last bit of measuring is going to be the dimensions for those ribs, and is what we need to do whenever we're measuring that. Okay, so this is going to be Y to rib 1 on the passenger side. Okay, and we have dimensions on the passenger and driver side, and is what we need to do is when we're measuring, we are doing it in that location where the ribs are going to be. So we have our 14-inch opening, and so they're going to sit right along here. So we want to measure in those spots, and we measure both sides because again, there's inconsistencies in the ribs. They tend to wander some, and so we just want to make sure that each independent piece is fitted properly. So we do the Y. So again, that's going to be from, So normally with the Y, we're doing it from the outside for everything. With these, it's going to be a little bit different. So since the piece will fit on the inside of the ribs, on these flat ones, it butts up against it, and then we have, obviously like this rib, it's open. So we want to measure to this piece right here. Okay, so this, I guess we can call this like the X, or the Z rather, part of the rib, because it's what is protruding down. And so we're going to measure from that to that point. And you don't have to like stick it up in there, because you can reference it right here. Okay, so that's going to be 35 7/8 is to that. Okay, so that is going to be, and I'm on the passenger side here, I'm going to get it exactly where it needs to be. So 35 7/8 from the front of that to that rib. There's a thunderstorm rolling in apparently. I don't know if you can hear that lightning and thunder in the background, but. So we're going to do the other side. So we're going to do the exact same thing. And what do you know? It is at 36 1/8. So this is why we do both sides, because we cut these exact to fit, and it fits tight and snug up in there so that it braces on the ribs as well. So we're creating just a lot of strength through this. And so we just continue this process. We do from here to the next one, the next one, the next one. And this process is a little bit different because we basically, we're not continuing the measuring from here. We do each individual distance. So we just did, Y to rib 1. So that's the front to rib 1. And then we do rib 1 to rib 2. And so on the passenger side, we are at 37. From rib 1 to rib 2 is 37. And then on this one, it's actually consistent, and that one's 37 as well on the driver's side. And we continue the process, okay? So then the other key to this is, if you'll notice on the sheet, it says C channel open fore and aft, okay? So we need to know which direction the C channel faces, because that'll determine how the bracing slots in. So this one right here, the C is facing forward, or fore, okay? So the opening is on this side. That one is the same, this 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 one is the same, and then we get to this one, and it opens backwards to the aft, okay? So on this one, there's 3 that open backwards, and then the rest of them open forwards. So that is important. Let's talk about one other thing, and I don't see it in this trailer, but some trailers will have kind of a weird situation, and I can see it partially here. So this rib right here, it comes up, and then it's cut off right here, but it doesn't affect these measurements. But there are some that they come up, and then they're cut off here in the middle. So that is why, the other reasons why we need both side measurements. So then if that exists, then we know, okay, like that is a problem. And so you'll basically need to do, like let's say this one's cut off right here, okay? So we have rib 1 to rib 2 to rib 3. This is rib 3, but this measurement will be rib 1 to rib 4, and then you'll need to do 3 to 4, and then you come back 4 to 5, okay? So it'll make sense to us in here, but we just kind of wanted to clarify that because there are those weird situations. So you don't want to measure this one to like where you think the half rib would end. You want to measure it to the next one it runs into, because we need that section to span the whole gap, if that makes sense. Again, when it comes to this, we know that this is a little bit of a deviation from like the original way it's done and all that. We're adding some additional bracing in, but it's totally worth it. And again, we can help walk you through the process, answer any questions you have. So you just continue that, and then we move on to the next thing. Okay, so now we need to measure and establish basically our center line, and this is not super critical when it comes to like the skins themselves. It will definitely help when it comes to your placement, and it does help us just make sure things are kind of square in there. And so we're going to be measuring that off of the face of the rib. So we're just going to do this front one here. This trailer, I believe, has already had the center line marked, so that might just help us. We're going to be cheating a little bit. So we're going to place it along the floor and then just measure up. There's a spider web right here. That's sweet. It's not even October yet. So we're going to come up. And if you don't have a clear reference, so basically, it's good to get like an idea. So let's say, okay, that one's, we're going to say just 110 if we were guessing. So coming up here, we're assuming we're close to 110 then. And then we're going to do the same thing on the other side and see where we land on our assumption, and then we'll basically split the difference, and that will give us the center line there. So okay, and so 110 lands over there. So that where we were measuring to 110, it's now at 109.5. So if we split the difference between the two, it'll be 109.75. Because this way it was 110, 109.5. Center it between the two, 109.75. So that is our center line. Okay, so now we're going to do the final few little things. We're going to talk about that. The C-channel depth for the floor. That's basically, we need to know how deep it is. So this one here is about 1 5/8 for the floor. And then we need our wall, so our rib depth. So that one is about 1 inch and 11/16 right now, 13/16. Yeah, and 1 13/16. And that is pretty much all of the measuring in regards to like the trailer and all the components in it. The next thing that we need to figure out, and we kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, is how our sheets are going to overlap and where our seams are going to be. So we have this, this first section that is like Y to skin second, Y skin first, Y skin second, Y skin third. And that is like if you measure, like if you can just give us the dimensions of where you want the seams to land, and then like that first one is going to be the front to where that skin is going to intersect the next sheet. And then the length of that first skin, then the length of the second skin, and then the length of the third skin. If you just don't really know what you want to do with your design, and you're like, I have some ideas, but I don't know how to like really hash it all out, we are also offering design services. So we can help you figure out what it is you want, put it into the computer, and start to like scale it to where A, you can see it better, and B, we can really optimize it, and we can figure out best placement of things. We can really maximize storage space and all these different things. We've done quite a few now on the computer, and it has just completely changed how we build these trailers. So we are now offering that service, and we have a few different tiers from just kind of a simple SketchUp design to like a fully comprehensive one that'll give you like blueprints of like how your cabinets and everything are going to be, all the way up to where we're doing a full Fusion 360 CAD CAM design to where we can actually cut the furniture on our CNC and send it to you. So we have lots of different options for you. So go check that out if you are interested, and then that will tie into this. So we just wanted to throw that in there. But that is pretty much it. And obviously we haven't done 100% of this. We just wanted to show you the important things. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us, call, email. We'll help you through this. We want to make sure it's done properly, but we believe that this video will help you get it right, because once you understand it, it's pretty straightforward. So thank you all for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like us on Instagram, all that stuff. Leave some comments. Let us know what you think of everything we got going on, and we will see you next time.